Wassily Kandinsky was a Russian painter that lived from 1866 to 1944. He spent his younger years as a musician and played both the piano and the cello. He studied and taught law until he turned 30. After seeing an art exhibit showcasing Monet's haystacks, he set out on the journey to become an artist. He traveled throughout Europe studying painting and creating his vision of the abstract. Kandinsky saw an amazing connection between music and color. He had a condition called synesthesia, where the brain creates colors in the mind when listening to music. He also believed shapes were connected to emotions. He felt the triangle represented aggressiveness, the square represented calmness, and the circle represented peace.
Hi everyone! Today we're going to be working on a project based on Wassily Kandinsky's famous painting. Squares with concentric circles. Concentric means a common center. You're going to need paint supplies, glue or Mod Podge, and some scissors. Let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create some collage papers. You don't have to use those. You can use magazine papers, fabric, all different things for collage, but we're going to create some bright color paper. So these are the papers that I created, and I have lots of different colors to choose from because we're going to want lots of different colors for this project. So we're going to create a piece right now. So I'm going to show you how I go about making a collage paper. But really, collage paper can be anything. So you can create any kind of designs, but we want it to be kind of the similar color because of the way we're layering the circles on this project. So I'm trying to think what color. I think I'm going to work on blue. So I'm going to take a few different kinds of blue on my palette, which just use some aluminum foil or a plastic lid that you can kind of throw out because we don't want to pour paint down the sink. We'd rather crumple it up and put it in the garbage because it saves your parents from having to get a plumber. So I'm going to add a little bit of white too so we can make different values of our blue. And I'm going to get some different paint brushes because the nice thing about making collage papers is we're kind of figuring out different kinds of things we can do with our brush strokes. So it's just a really easy way to kind of experiment. So I'm going to make a really nice light blue first. Let me move this off to the side. And I'm using just regular cardstock. You can use construction paper too for this. You can also use construction paper for your circles, but I'm going to paint mine. So I'm just going to go over the cardstock like this, just kind of a wash. So I add the water, add my paint, and I'm just going to make kind of some designs. And I don't have this planned out. I'm just having fun. So I'm going all the way around the paper. And then I'm going to add maybe a darker blue to the blue I have. And then I'm going to kind of go in. We're going to create, I don't know, what kind of shapes? Let's do some squares. You could create triangles, you could create circles. And as you were listening at the very beginning of this class is Wassily Kandinsky. He felt like shapes were kind of attached to emotions. Kind of an interesting way to think. And he also had, I call it a superpower. He could create in his head pictures of colors when he was listening to music. And how he heard it, a lot of people with this condition, they hear some notes will bring up colors, but for him, it was the type of instrument that he heard playing to what color that he would think of. So you know what? I would sit down and maybe as you're doing your collage papers, feel free to turn on some music. Kind of think the way Wassily Kandinsky did and think about what song kind of represents what color. It's kind of an interesting way to think because most of us don't think that way. But there is a few people that do. Okay, so I'm going to do another square. And I'm just going to go through, and I made multiple papers before I started the class just so you could kind of put the video on pause and work through some colors. So, you know what? Go through your color wheel and think, okay, red, blue, yellow. Then you can go through and think about your secondary colors. So if you mix blue and red, that's purple. Blue and yellow, that's green. And red and yellow is orange. So just go through and create lots of different colors. And if you don't use this paper for this project, you can hold on to them and use them for another collage another time. So I'm just going to go through and I'm just going to make some cool lines. If you notice, some of my papers, I actually have used even markers the same color to draw lines and some shapes, some flowers. But I'm just going to use paint with this one. I'm going to add a little bit of white because the blue's a lot. Okay. So we're going to go through like this. And with collage papers, you don't always have to tape the sides down. I do just because I don't want them to curl too badly. But that's just a personal preference. And you could even, I'm going to be working on paper for my background paper, but you can use a canvas, you can use all sorts of things. But I'm going to show you something really cool. We're going to create these and I'm going to show you what they look like framed. And I think that's quite exciting because if you show your parents, I just went and got some frames just from the dollar store. There's lots of them. And I put them in there and they look all fancy. So you can hang them around your house or in your room, or you could give them away as a present. So there, I kind of like that collage paper. Kind of feels like clouds. Okay, so I'm gonna be right back. So I'm back. So I did make my collage paper, but now I want to do my background paper. So I'm going to actually do two pieces of paper the same, and it's just because I want two pieces of artwork, and I'm going to show you why. So I am going to go ahead, and my background, I'm going to do a black and gray because the circles that I'm going to be creating are extremely bright. So what's a great contrast to really bright is really dark. And you can't get any darker than black. Okay, so I'm gonna put the black there. And I'm gonna go in with some dark gray later, but I'm gonna do like a wash of black all the way across my background. And if you decide you wanna use a different color, go ahead. Like I always say, it's experimenting. We're kind of creating our own piece of art. Yes, it's kind of representing somebody else's. The one change that I have made, if you remember the name of the painting we are kind of recreating, is squares with concentric circles. So technically in Kandinsky's, there is a square behind each circle, but I kind of like it as just a black background. The one really interesting thing I learned about this painting is they don't even think that this painting was actually, Kandinsky would have thought this was going to be his most famous painting like it was. It was actually a color study that he did. And what a color study is he was practicing. So he was experimenting with color. He wanted to see what one color would look like beside another. And he put the circles, he layered the circles one on top of the other. And the reasoning why is because if you listen to the name, squares with concentric circles. Concentric means the centers are common, are the same. So the centers of each circle layer he creates are all the same. Kind of interesting when you go back into art history and realize why the artist did what they did. But it's kind of amazing that he created it really just as like notes to show himself like what his colors look like. He didn't realize that this would be the most well-recognized painting that he'd ever created. So remember how I told you sometimes when you paint paper it can bubble up? Well, if it bubbles up too badly, before I frame it, I'm going to kind of flip it over when it's dry, and I'm going to just spritz some water on the back, and then I'm going to put it between some parchment paper and some heavy books, and that's going to flatten it right out for me. I'm going to look, and I'm going to create some gray. I just want to do a little bit of interest in the back. You don't have to. You can leave it black if you like, but I always like it when the color doesn't look super flat. I like it when there's a little bit of something. So I'm just going to go in and lightly do a really light wash. Oh, that kind of came out a little lighter than I thought. It was on my brush, but that's okay, right? And go back in. Just go over top of it, just like this. I have white in the inside of my paintbrush. It's being a pain, but that's okay. Maybe it's telling me I need it to be lighter. Remember I said sometimes these mistakes or accidents we make on our paintings can be amazing, because I'm kind of liking the white streaks now, even though I didn't think I would. My paintbrush must have known. Okay, so I'm going to leave this one to dry, and I'm going to do the same thing on the second piece of paper. So when I come back, I'm going to have both papers painted. So you can pause the video and just keep painting your backgrounds, and then come back and we're going to talk about creating the circles. Okay, so I've gotten 2 of these done because I'm going to make 2 paintings, or mixed media, I guess, because it's collage and paintings, and I'm going to frame them and I'm going to put them side by side. Thought they would look kind of neat that way. And I will show you at the very end how it turns out. So I want to show you what the circles are. So I'm not going to put them down because it's still quite wet. So I'm going to put it over here to dry. But we're going to create the circles. And because they're called concentric circles, it means the centers are in the same place. So it means if you put a pin through the very middle, it would go all the way through. But I want you to remember, this is your art project. So if you want to create it where they're all layered on top of each other like that, you go for it. I'm going to do it kind of the way Kandinsky did his. So the centers are going to all be in the middle. And I'm sure it's not going to be perfect, but as close as I can get it. So we're going to collage the circles one on top of the other. He actually created his with watercolor and gouache. It's 2 different kind of paint, so he painted his, but we're gonna do ours this way. I think it's a lot of fun. So what I did, you can just draw a circle, random circles. If you want to do it that way, you definitely can, but I'm not so good at, oh, I've got dog hair on here. It drives me crazy. There we go. So I like to create templates when I make circles. And so what I do is I go around my house and see what I can find that's a circle. So I'm going to want a bigger circle. So I'm going to use this. Then I'm going to want one that kind of fits there. So I'm going to use the bottom of that cup. If you look, there's a big size difference there. And then I'm going to use the bottom of the paint. So they will all fit one on top of the other. So what we're going to do is, this one I just made is still a little bit damp. So I'm going to put that to the side, and I'll probably use it for something else. But I'm going to take my cup and I'm going to put it down here. And I am going to create a circle. So if you watch the sheep collage at the beginning of the month, you probably have seen me do this with a bowl before. But you just pretty much put the cup down and work with your pencil all the way around. And then what I'm going to do too is I'm going to create, do I have enough room? I don't have enough room for this one, but I do have a room for a smaller one. And I work all the way around. You can use the bottom of bottles or a cup or a bowl. And then I'm going to show you, I will make one more. That's the middle one right here. And I'm going to cut all those out and I'm going to make piles of them. I'm going to go through all my paper and I'm just going to keep cutting a whole bunch. So on each piece of paper, I'm going to do each circle. So I'm going to do the bottom of the cup, that cup, and this one. So I'm going to create all my papers like that, and I'm going to cut out piles of different size of circles. So you cut these out, and then I'm going to show you what you're going to end up with. So I've already created these piles, and I like using different colors, because if you used all the same color, you wouldn't really be able to see anything. So I kind of create, so I'll have, first of all, you're going to have your piles of your bigger circles. So you put those down first. Then you do your middle circle and your top circle. And you're just kind of designing what you want it to look like. So create lots of piles. You can just keep drawing circles and cutting them out. And like I said, you can use fabric, use magazine paper, you can use your collage papers, all kinds of things. And you can do one painting or you can do multiple ones like I'm gonna do. Because I want to put them up in my house and I think they're kind of bright and fun. And I bet you your parents will too. Okay. So just like that, we're gonna create those piles. And then I'm gonna look. Do you remember what I said is if you ever paint a canvas or a piece of paper, you want it to dry really, really well before you glue anything on. And the reasoning why is paint is really plastic or glue. So what happens is if you put a wet paint, so plastic or glue on top, it's gonna start peeling off the paper. So you wanna wait for that to dry and adhere to the paper. And then it won't do that. But I'm gonna look, it is dry enough that I can kind of show you the idea I had for this project. So I'm gonna put my circles down here, here. And I like mixing up the colors, so they're just random. But I love the idea of what Kandinsky was doing. He wanted to see what these colors looked like next to each other. And it's a really great way to do that. Kind of a neat way. And of course, I've got these underneath here and I just made a big mess. I'll try one more time. And then we're gonna frame them. And like I said, you might not want the centers to be perfect. You might want them to be all over the place. Or the circles collaged everywhere. That's totally up to you. So I'm gonna work all the way over like that. And you know what? It's gonna kind of be onto the white part of the paper, which is fine. You could even paint the sides black, but I kind of like the way it looks. So it's going to look like this when I'm done. So I'm going to be right back. I'm gonna go get my glue. And you just pause your video until you're done your piles of circles, and then we're gonna meet back here. So I'm back, and we're gonna start gluing on the circles. It's gonna be lots of fun. So I've got kind of my piles, what I'd like them to look like. So I went through and made sure that the colors all kind of worked the way I wanted to. And remember I said that you can go and paint the edges if you want of the paper, but I kind of like it the way it is. So I'm gonna start with actually creating my first center circle, because then I kind of, oh, actually, that's a lie. Because there's gonna be one here and one here. So I'm gonna start right here, and then I'm gonna put the other one right here. So I can kind of just see for placement. And I wanna mix up my colors. There was another orange one, but I'm gonna go with the purple. so kind of see where I can fit everything. So I'm going to take my first circle and I'm going to put it on my foil. And remember I said you can always glue the paper, or you can glue the back of the paper that you're collaging on. And it just keeps it a little bit neater and tidier. And if you don't care if it's a little bit shiny where the glue is, you just go ahead and glue the paper itself. Remember, it's your project, so each thing you do is your decision. I'm just here to guide you. I'm not here to tell you how your art piece needs to look. That's the exciting part about art, is everyone's is going to look different. Put these ones to the side. And I love this purple. If you look, I took a marker and I kind of just made little designs. So if you feel like your paper is a little bit plain, feel free to get your markers, your Crayola markers out. Try that. Okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to paste this, and I'm just realizing I think it got warm out today, and I think my dog is shedding because it seems like her hair is everywhere, especially when there's glue. I always say my commissions probably have a dog in it. So I didn't put enough glue on, so I'm just going to go through and kind of paste that on again. Perfect. And then I'm going to take the inside of the circles and I'm going to do the middle one. And for me, I am choosing to leave the centers all kind of the same. Perfect. I love these art history classes. I am obsessed with art history. You came and looked at all the books I read. I'm usually reading one at a time. All the time about art history. Oh, look at what I did. I didn't see, this is what happens. You don't wait for it to totally dry. I thought it was. It's a little dark there, but that's okay. I'm gonna go in and do this. Kind of don't think that looks too bad just because it's different colors, but if that bothered you, you could go in with some orange paint and just kind of cover it up. I think really what happened is I have paint on my hands, so I'm known to do that sometimes. And these are gonna look amazing in a frame, and I wanna show you that you can do paint on cardstock really well. So cardstock does not cost too much. You can just get it at the office supply store in a package. And I love to paint on it because I can frame them. That's canvases, yes, you can put hangers on them and hang them up, but sometimes I like them in a really nice classy frame. I think they look really good. Okay, try not to touch the center of this one with my painted fingers that caused the problem in the other one. Okay, and then I'm going to look here. But this is the thing about art. Sometimes things happen. So I got some black paint on the orange part. So I have to make the decision, okay, does that bother me enough that I need to change it, or do I like it? Sometimes I like leaving mistakes because I feel like that's part of the process of creating our art. You know what? There's green here. So this is the thing too, is you get to kind of play around with where your colors are. Or I think this looks really cool, just like that. So if I did that one there, what other colors should I use? I don't want to put the orange by the orange. You could, but I just am choosing not to. I'm going to create this one. I kind of try to balance the colors out a bit, and that's just my personal preference of how I like to work on my art. Okay, let's try this one. Okay, lots of glue. And I could have probably used a bigger brush, but I didn't. I had this one and it was kind of wrecked. And those are the brushes I keep a hold of for gluing. Okay, I'm gonna bring this one down a little bit. If you're ever worried about pushing down and making too big of a mess, if your hands are covered in paint, the one thing that you can do is put another piece of paper or a piece of parchment paper, and you can push. But I'm just doing it this way. It's the messy way, I know, but just how I roll sometimes. There we go. So Kandinsky, he ended up touring all over Europe when he started becoming an artist full-time, and he loved the Impressionists. And you know who's an Impressionist we learned about last month is Van Gogh. He also liked the Impressionists. So we're going to learn about that too as we go. Some different artists that had different styles of painting. Kandinsky was actually known, they call him the father or grandfather of abstract, because he was he wasn't the first, but he was one of the first abstract painters out there. And really I think the reason he was so good at abstract is the fact that he had that condition that when he heard music, he could close his eyes and he saw color. So what an amazing superpower. I think that, it probably really helped him with his paintings. Okay, so I'm gonna work on that one. But let me know. I know we're gonna do a class on Mona Lisa because somebody was asking about that, and Monet. So if you guys are interested, and I think Frida. So if you guys are interested in a specific artist or a painting or kind of a type of painting, please let me know because I love to research art history. I just read a book on Lauren Harris, and he was part of the group of 7. And we're going to learn all about them. They were Canadian artists, and they did landscape. And I'm a landscape painter. I paint other things like portraits, but I really, truly love landscape. So I don't really want to put the orange in the orange. I want it kind of all broken up, so I'm going to put the orange up there. Oh, and I just think this looks so good. I love bright colors, especially against the black background. I'm really happy I decided to do that. So for you smaller kids that are doing this class, don't feel like you have to do all these different circles. You could just do one big circle and a middle circle and just keep making them. They're lots of fun. Here we go. Just like that. Here. Okay. There we go. The one sad thing about Kandinsky's paintings is there was a lot of them that were destroyed that we'll never have the chance to see. During World War II, there was a lot of paintings that were destroyed, and his were sadly some of the ones that were, because abstract during World War II, during history, scared people. They didn't understand on why this person painted the way they did. So instead of kind of asking questions and keeping an open mind, they just decided they didn't like it. And so they destroyed it all, which is so very sad. Happened with a lot of abstract painters. Wonder if he knows how many were destroyed, though I don't think he does, because he died the year before World War II ended. So it's one thing I couldn't find information. I wanted to see if he kind of knew about the paintings that were destroyed. I'm sure he probably knew some of them were, but he probably didn't know which ones, because he was in France at the time. The thing is about art history is you really get to know about history and how interesting it is and when these painters were alive and what they were going through. There we go. Oh, I love that pink paper I made. Okay, the last circle. And then I'm going to create the other one. So you just keep working away on yours. So it doesn't matter if it's one circle or your circles are all over the place. We're just looking for different colors and collage circles. And I would love you to show me your work. Please email it or put it on the Facebook page. I'm super excited. So I will see you guys again next week.